First thing I'd like to do is to welcome everyone to this meeting. We really appreciate having you all here to talk about an important issue for people on the spectrum. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sarah Armstrong of the Canucks Autism Network. Sarah works as the Navigator of Youth and Adult Services, and she will be speaking to us about the Ready, Willing, and Able program. Go ahead, Sarah.
All right, great. And my colleague Ross MacMillan will also be joining me today to speak about Ready, Willing, and Able. Can everyone see the screen okay? Is that all right?
It's good.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you so much, Joette and Aaron and everyone at Square Peg Society for having us here. We're going to be talking today about the Ready, Willing, and Able program that is being offered right now by the Canucks Autism Network. So first, we'll just give you a bit of an introduction. My name is Sarah Armstrong. I use the pronouns she, her, and hers. And I'm our Navigator of Youth and Adult Services. And I'll let my colleague Ross introduce himself in just a minute. But today we're just going to give you a bit of an overview of the program, you know, kind of the process for getting involved, the intake, the assessment, and the referral process, some of the supports we can provide if an individual is hired for a position. You know, Ross is also going to briefly talk about, you know, some of the changes and challenges that have come up with COVID-19. And then we'll also talk about some other new upcoming employment programs happening at the Canucks Autism Network. So Ready, Willing, and Able is a national initiative running in over 20 communities across the country. So it's a partnership between Inclusion Canada and CASDA. And, you know, the aim of the program is really to increase the demand to hire inclusively by working with employers, but also with working with job seekers and connecting them to employment supports and services in the community. So here in BC, the program is offered by 2 delivery partners. That includes Inclusion BC, as well as the Canucks Autism Network. So, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about CAN, especially because that's where Ross and I both work, and some of the services we provide. I'll hand it over to Ross.
Thank you, Sarah. Afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. So my name is Ross, and I am the Employer Engagement Specialist at Canucks Autism Network, and specifically I'm the Labor Market Facilitator for the Ready, Willing, and Able program. So essentially that means that I'm the guy that's going out there to generate the demand for the program, and you know, basically promoting the business case of why inclusive hiring is good for business. And no, that's great. No, that's great. Good instincts. Good instincts. So how RWA works? So basically, as I was just saying, we go out there, we create demand, we help employers identify suitable positions, and then we share that demand. We send out the jobs to the agencies. I think some of you might have gotten a couple jobs today. So yeah, so we send it out to our agency partners, and we've got about around 20 partners in Greater Vancouver. And as Sarah was saying, the program is right across the country, so in pretty much every province and territory. So once we send out the job descriptions to the agency partners, the agencies then send us candidates, which we then share with the employer, and then the employer looks at the candidates and decides who they want to interview. And then so we facilitate that hiring process by helping arrange interviews. And then once the employer decides to hire someone, then we provide support. So we provide access for the agencies for job coaching, adaptive technologies. We also provide the employer access to to things like the RWA-Works program. So this gives employers a good foundation for better understanding inclusive hiring and hiring people on the spectrum. And so it's a good introduction. And then, you know, we also try to stay connected to those employers after the hire, so that, you know, every few weeks, having a check-in with the employer, making sure everything's going well. So yeah, so basically my job is to help employers increasing the awareness and understanding of inclusive hiring for people with autism and intellectual disabilities, encouraging the hiring of diverse candidates for real meaningful employment, real work for real pay is what we're looking for. And essentially, the way that I really find that helps sell inclusive hiring to employers is when you tell them that you've got a free inclusive hiring service, that, you know, that we can actually find you candidates that can do the job in a fairly short amount of time. So this is very, very attractive to a lot of employers. Yeah, so COVID-19, it's definitely had, as all of you know, I'm sure, had quite an impact on employers. So especially anything that's in-person industry, like the hotel industry, restaurants, events. We had a lot of employers that were getting ready to hire for that summer season, and, you know, it's just basically evaporated because all the events and just in-person gatherings were canceled. So we've also seen a lot of reduced capacity for small businesses who have had to lay off a lot of their staff. And so, you know, we're being pretty mindful when it comes to approaching those small businesses, you know, because they are probably having a harder time than most. So, you know, we're trying to stay engaged, but, you know, looking for new opportunities and angles that we can demonstrate how RWA can help. So some of the trends that we've seen in hiring have definitely been in retail, warehousing, and cleaning and sanitizing jobs. For retail, Home Depot's been really good. They've been able to pivot really well during COVID. They've really been looking after their staff really well. They've listened to their staff, and I think that's such an important part of being a good employer. So is trying to find an employer that actually will listen to their staff, and so they understand that you know, COVID has created a lot of situations where people are going to have to work from home and look after family, homeschooling, all these kind of things. So organizations like Home Depot have actually made accommodations for a lot of their staff. So they've given everyone COVID time, and everyone gets a certain amount of COVID time to deal with some of these new eventualities that have arisen out of COVID. But like so many other organizations too, remote opportunities are what a lot of people are realizing, that this is actually a pretty good thing for a lot of positions, that they're realizing that actually people can still be really productive when they're working at home. Some people even more productive when they're working at home. So especially in positions like IT, accounting, data entry, and customer service positions too, where you talk to people online. Just a few things I wanted to talk about for job searching during COVID. First of all, you know, be open, keep your options open. Be flexible. Right now, you might not find your dream job right now, but you might find something that's actually really cool that you wouldn't have looked at otherwise if it wasn't for COVID. So, you know, keep your options open and apply for multiple positions. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are in the same boat, that are looking for work. You know, research, if you're worried about your comfort level about working during COVID, you know, go go research the employer's website. A lot of employers are putting their COVID protocols of what they're doing to keep their staff safe. They're putting those on their website. If public transportation is a concern, then you know, ask questions about other opportunities. Some organizations are even using shuttle services for their employees. I've heard. Read the job description carefully. So make sure you look at everything, all the must-haves for the job, and understand the position. You can always, if it's a job that I've put out, feel free to phone or email me or Sarah. We're happy to answer any questions about the job. Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for that, Ross. So that kind of brings it to my position, which, you know, working more with job seekers. So I'm our navigator of youth and adult services. You know, so in my role, what I really look to do is connect individuals to employment supports and services that are available in the community, really depending on their goals and what that individual is looking for. And sometimes, you know, employment for some people, that might not be the right step for them. So other supports and services in the community too, like mental health and opportunities for social connection. So just kind of a little bit of an overview of what I do, you know, direct outreach to people, job seekers with autism, as well as others that, you know, might be supporting them, other groups such as Square Peg Society, you know, to always be sharing resources and supports, you know, to job seekers. You know, I meet with individuals and, you know, do a bit of an assessment to get to know, you know, their unique strengths, what their employment goals are. And then we actually do, you know, direct referral to existing services and supports that are in the community. Sometimes also referrals internally to our Canucks Autism Network programs. And a huge part of what I do is just ongoing, you know, service navigation and doing my best to continue to find new resources and supports and, you know, learning about new programs so that we can best support job seekers on the spectrum. So really, if anyone would be interested in connecting with me, we're looking for individuals who, you know, self-identify with having autism. Individuals must be, you know, legally entitled to work in Canada, so meaning that they're of legal working age, being 16. You know, if there's any youth who, you know, don't, you know, meet that criteria quite yet in terms of the age, I'm also, you know, still happy to connect to, you know, find out what other kinds of supports and services might be available. So the best way to connect with me is through our Compass questionnaire. So this is located on the Canucks Autism Network website. I'm happy to share some information, you know, after the presentation for how to find the survey. But if you just go online and go to our employment page, it's right there. So, you know, filling out the Compass, which, you know, asks some questions just about employment history, goals, you know, past experience with employment agencies, you know, helps us to gather some information prior to meeting with you, where, you know, that will really help determine, you know, what supports make the most sense. You know, once the Compass has been completed, you know, I would get in touch with the job seeker and set up a time to meet. You know, typically that would happen in person, but unfortunately, you know, due to COVID-19, that's happening online, usually over Zoom. And yeah, so sorry, I think I skipped ahead there for a second. So yeah, that website link is right there, but like I said, we will make sure to share that following this presentation. And, you know, during the assessment, we just continue to ask, you know, some different questions about goals, you know, your past history, and then we talk through, you know, different options for a referral. So, you know, the referral really depends on the individual's, you know, unique needs, their eligibility, location. You know, I really understand for job seekers, it can be extremely overwhelming trying to navigate all the different types of employment services and supports that are out there. It's even really confusing for me sometimes. So, you know, having the navigator is really helpful in just, you know, pointing you in the right direction and, you know, doing some of that research beforehand, so you don't have to feel overwhelmed looking at all the different types of options. So once, if we do refer you to an agency or community support, I'll continue to follow up with you just to make sure that that's been a good fit for you. And then check in, kind of up for 3 to 6 months following that time. We don't do direct case management, but really want to make sure that that individual is well supported and has been well connected with the appropriate services. And one other eligibility criteria that we didn't really list that I do want to mention is that we're really looking for individuals who identify finding employment as a goal. So, we want individuals who are interested in employment if they're looking to access our services. And, one other thing to mention too is, not everyone might want to be referred to an agency or a service, and, that's totally fine too. What we can also do is, as Ross mentioned, through Ready, Willing, and Able, continue to send the job seeker job postings that come up through the program. So they're able to apply for those job postings on your own, if that's preferred over working with an agency. So there's that option too. So really, what we would do is talk through all those different options during that assessment stage.
Yeah, so as Sarah was saying, RWA, we can help with a lot of different things. So we provide the training for employers. So we can do a webinar, we can do just presentations. We can actually, help employers to understand the job coaching process a little bit more about, we've connected some of the agency partners with some of our employers just so they understand the process more. But we can also pay for things like transportation costs, which I know that this is usually a 3-month max, but RWA is able to actually provide things like transportation for people to go to and from work for up to 3 months. So that's something else to consider. Yeah, we're just trying to reduce any kind of barriers, financial barriers for employers to be able to hire people with that are neurodiverse job seekers.
Great. Thanks, Ross. So briefly, we're just going to quickly touch on some of the other upcoming, employment programs that are happening with the Canucks Autism Network. So the first one I just wanted to mention, which is a brand new program. Oop, there goes my doorbell. Sorry about that. It's called Skills It's a skills training program called STEP. That's going to be starting on February 1st, and it's a 12-week training program that will include 6 weeks of paid in-classroom work experience, going over skills such as soft skills, certifications, and then it will also include 6 weeks of paid work experience. And for the first cohort, the industry that we'll be focusing on is the cleaning industry. So this is a brand new program. I've listed some of the eligibility here. Won't go into every single detail, but we will have more information about this program and an information session happening in December. So, I'll be sure to send that out. It'll also be on Canucks Autism Network social media, and I'll make sure that Square Peg Society has access to kind of the updated information. But certainly if you have any questions, you can contact Ross or myself. We've also listed the email for the program below here. But like I said, there'll be more information coming out about this program in the next couple weeks. Another exciting program CAN is facilitating is called Project Fast Track. This is another federally funded program that's in direct response to COVID-19. So it'll include work placements with a variety of different businesses for a 1 to 4 week period. Participants will be trained on the job. We're hoping in person, but possibly virtually or hybrid of both in a particular industry. So again, this program is still in the works, but it is going to be starting in January 2021. And we will have, more information coming out in the next couple of weeks. And just a little bit more information here, about the program, that our participants will again be paid for their participation. And, we will also provide support for paying for certifications such as first aid, food safe, and again, for transportation as well. And one other program to mention, through the Canucks Autism Network, we have a new virtual Explore Employment program. So this is going to be an online program that will run for 8 weeks. That will be a mix between different things like social skills in the workplace, job seeking skills, career exploration. We're going to have a range of different employers and experts in the employment field that will be presenting and joining throughout the weeks. So that program will also be starting up in January. And the last one I will mention is our Explore volunteering program. This is something we've been offering for the last couple of years, and we are hoping to offer this program in person. It'll be a little bit different than normal because we're hoping to go outside and have volunteer tasks that are happening in an outdoor setting as much as possible. But really the way the program works is each week a group of participants, go out in the community and volunteer in a different community setting. In between those volunteer tasks, the group also works on things such as social communication skills, work skills, and social skills. So that's another one just to put on your radar. And, throughout everything that's been happening with COVID-19, CAN has also been hosting a number of other online opportunities. So, things like virtual fitness, just a virtual social meetups, movie clubs, where each week the group, or each month the group watches a movie together and then has almost like a book club discussion afterwards, discussing the movie and what they liked and didn't like about it, different games, as well as a range of other virtual monthly opportunities with different guest speakers and guest facilitators. So, these are Canucks Autism Network programs, the ones listed here, as well as our, Explore volunteering. So for those particular programs, you do need to have a CAN membership, and I can provide some more information about that. All the information for joining CAN is located on our website, but I'm also happy to answer any questions about that. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So I have listed our contact information here. So feel free if you'd like to jot it down, but I can also provide it following the presentation today, should anyone be interested. So yeah, happy to take any questions anyone might have.
I'd like to ask about the fast track work placements. What areas do you have placements in?
We're hoping to get some. We're hoping for a couple retail people. I'm actually I can tell you that I am working on getting Home Depot involved. So initial conversations have been, they're interested, but a big organization like that, it's hard to get an answer quickly. So I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that they're going to be involved in there. So, I think it's a great opportunity because everything's paid for. So there's no barriers for the employer. All their expenses are paid for, and then they already have a very good training program that's very supportive, and they want to keep expanding that right across the country. So I'm hoping that they see this as an opportunity for them to have some folks getting trained. Hopefully they'll be hiring some of the people after the training. But even if they don't, the people that come out of the program are going to have new skills, and they are going to, benefit from that, the structure of the Home Depot training, which is pretty good.
But we will have, our team who is working on that program, they will be doing information sessions coming up when, more of the details in terms of the employers and placements are finalized. So I'll make sure to share that information with you once it's ready.
But then Ross, you mentioned also an openness and flexibility around the work situations. And that's challenging. It's challenging for individuals on the spectrum, but it's also challenging, because their natural predisposition, as it is for many of us, is to do what we know, right?
Absolutely.
But for anybody who has a limited amount of work experience, it's really hard to envision what you can do. You know some of your skills. So how do you draw that out of people? And it seems to me like, try out work, going into a workplace to see a situation, or these short-term fast track programs are an ideal way to explore that. But how do you encourage that individuals? How do you help them to find what might be a fit for them if they have a limited amount of work experience?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think just to clarify too, when we talk about, being flexible and open to work right now, that was kind of in context of COVID-19 and how, the amount of job opportunities and the range of industries currently available are currently limited because of COVID-19. So just, to keep that in mind as you're applying, that even, if it's not your number one choice, that, if you are looking for work, that right now, the options are going to be a little bit more limited. But like you said, I think, engaging in programs where you're able to have that, firsthand experience and like Fast Track and like this new STEP program, where you're going to be able to actually try it out. But also things like, working with employers, and maybe I'll let Ross speak to this when it comes to the interview process, and actually trying something out during the interview versus just your typical kind of face-to-face interview.
Yeah, we really encourage employers to actually try these working interviews, where they're doing hands-on work that they're going to hopefully get hired to do, and that is definitely something that seems to help out both the job seeker and the employer to understand the abilities of the candidates. Any other questions? Yes, Robert.
Hi. As you know, Kira has just recently found employment. And one of the main stumbling blocks that we saw was the interview. And she'd go into these interviews one after the other, lots of them. And she would be lost and come out of that interview and really, I don't think, engaged in a meaningful back and forth with the prospective employer. So is there any like training or things that you can do through these programs to help with the interview process? Because when she comes back, then we hear, well, they asked me about this. Well, what did you say? And because everything's moving so fast, they just don't quickly react to things. And we just find that as being a bit of a stumbling block.
Definitely. And I think, first of all, connecting with an employment agency and getting set up with a job coach who can be, supporting the individual through the interview process and being there to prepare beforehand and, kind of help with any any barriers that might come up during the interview. Definitely can be a helpful resource, but also ensuring that those, employers are also trained and, have, the skills to be able to, maybe adapt the style of the interview. So, there are different trainings that are currently going on. Circa, Karen Boff is actually when she was, I know, speaking with this group a couple of weeks ago, in the process of creating training modules for employers. RWA can also support with some training for employers, once the individual finds employment. But there certainly are, resources that are currently being developed to try to kind of address that barrier.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that there's someone in the chat who has a question. I can read it to you if you'd like. RWA will connect individuals with agencies. What kind of agencies are they? Are they WorkBC?
Yeah, great question, Anna. So, the type of agency that we would connect an individual with really depends on that person's unique needs, the eligibility criteria, where they're located. And like I said before, there's a lot of factors to consider. So, here in British Columbia, if an individual is eligible for Community Living BC, then there's certain agencies that provide employment programs that would be a good fit. So we would go through and likely make a referral to an agency that is supported under Community Living BC. For some individuals who are not eligible for CLBC, then WorkBC potentially would be an option. WorkBC is kind of a one-stop shop for all British Columbians looking for employment. So with that in mind, we're in the process of starting some training for WorkBC staff. So that's something to keep in mind. But there's also many other employment agencies, which I think, and programs, which I think you're going to hear about a few more today on today's meeting. Other agencies that provide more specialized supports and services. An example might be even Back in Motion here, the warehousing program and their Skills for Life and Work program. Programs offered at PAFN, EmploymentWorks. There's some independent agencies that offer more specialized trainings if that's a better fit for the person. But it certainly can be very difficult to decide and determine what's going to be the best fit for that person. But we really just would need to meet with them first to decide what's going to make the most sense. I hope.
Thank you, Sarah, for answering the question. I think in the interest of time, we should move on to the next presenter, Anjela Godber. Anjela works for the Pacific Autism Family Network as an outreach manager. And she will I'm sure, give us more insight onto the programs that we've already briefly talked about.
There we go. Okay, yes, so I am going to talk about the EmploymentWorks pre-employment training program. I am with Pacific Autism Family Network. Our approach is a hub and spoke model. So the hub is our Richmond location. We also have spokes in Prince George, Kelowna, and Richmond, and we're hoping to get a few more spokes up and running in other areas of the province as well. The EmploymentWorks program offers employment preparedness. So it's basically a pre-employment training program for soft skills around employment. And of course, all those soft skills would include things like communication, task management, time management, organization, teamwork, flexibility, adaptability, and problem solving, just to name a few. We do offer pre-employment training for adults on the spectrum and other disabilities, as well as individuals with mental health challenges too. So we really work at the essential skills needed to not only find a job, but to sustain the job. So initially, this program had two phases. With COVID-19, our phase one job sampling does look quite a bit different, but traditionally the phase one was the manualized program, and that was for 12 weeks. So day one of a 2-day program would focus on the structured learning, so more classroom-based type of learning. Day two, we would practice these various soft skills we're trying to attain by practicing different and participating in different job sampling activities. Those job sampling activities included working in places like Save On Meats, working at SAP, Provincial Health Services Authority, Science World, Vancouver Aquarium, just to name a few. So we did try to provide some job sampling in a really wide variety of areas. And phase 2 happens after the 12 weeks, where we help people to participate in the labor market. And participating in the labor market can be hopefully through paid employment, if the person is not ready for paid employment and they want to just sort of obtain a little bit more experience through volunteering, we can help them with that. We can also help them if they want to participate in training programs, post-secondary. We can help them get connected to those areas as well. And again, we have collaborative relationships with other organizations. So for example, Ready, Willing, and Able, we try to, we provide them information about those job postings and help them to apply for those postings. Plus, we also help them to get connected to services such as WorkBC. Now, of course, with the the present COVID-19 situation, learning through experience is now being learned through an online experience. So our online experience is not quite the same as a hands-on job sampling, but what we do is we connect with different employers that will provide webinars, online webinar information sessions about what it's like to work in their organization, how to get a job in their organization, and what the culture of their organization looks like. We'll also have experience through WorkBC. They have a really great career compass or career exploration webinar, and that's been really great to figure out, you know, what participants are interested in, as well as what their skills are and what their values are as well, and how to find employment based on not only their interests, their skills, and their values. The adult learning, so we really try to get the participants to take ownership of their learning, and that's really what adult learning is all about. Is you take those experiences that you've had in your own life and you apply those experiences to what you're learning, and it makes it more approachable, and you connect to the learning a little bit better. And then of course, learning with others. Yes, learning online with others can be challenging, but we try to make it a lot of fun while we're learning online. So we do a lot of different teamwork type of games and icebreaker type of activities. And we know that it's a stressful time right now, and a lot of people might be feeling socially isolated at the moment. So we try to make EmploymentWorks a lot of fun. You know, if people are looking for work, one of the benefits with the EmploymentWorks program is that it is run Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 12:30. So if somebody is working part-time, but they still want to build up those soft skills around employment so that they can eventually work full-time, or they want to go and take training programs, or they're enrolled in a post-secondary program, the Tuesdays and Wednesdays 10 to 12:30 is a doable time. So some of the requirements or some of the things with the EmploymentWorks program, person has to be on the autism spectrum or have another disability, including a mental health challenge. They do not have to have an official diagnosis though. They're unemployed or underemployed. So again, if they're just working part-time, but they do, even if it's a part-time, they're working 20 hours, but they'd rather work 30 hours, that's fine. Struggle to get or keep a job. looking for opportunities to build various soft skills. So we've had people that are, working part-time, but they know that they struggle with their communication skills. So they've joined the EmploymentWorks program. We do try to look at lots of different workplaces, and we've had some people participating in the EmploymentWorks program who thought they wanted to go into one type of work, but while we've explored different workplaces, they've realized they want to try out something different. So for example, we have one person, he thought he wanted to be an auto mechanic, but while we've been exploring different workplaces through the WorkBC websites, he was introduced to the career of archiving and realized he would actually really like to do that. And so we're helping him figure out, which courses he needs to take, which soft skills he really needs to focus on to be a successful archivist. And so he's pretty excited about looking at that career option instead. And then at least 15 years of age, but we go 15 and up. So it's pretty big. Our next cohort is January, and it goes January 12th until the end of March. And then we have another cohort in May.
Okay, if there's no questions, I guess we'll move along to our final presenters. So last but not least, we have Barb Kalashnikov of WorkBC and Ken Inaba, also of WorkBC. Barb Kalashnikov is the employer and community coordinator at this organization in Burnaby, and Ken Inaba works as a customized employment coordinator also in Burnaby. So both have quite a bit of experience working and providing supports for people with disabilities.
Great, thanks so much, Erin. Great. Okay, so thanks so much for inviting us. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we do at WorkBC. Joette and I met at another kind of, it was a focus group, I believe, and at the time we talked afterwards, and she asked me to talk specifically to the training that WorkBC provides for employers, and that's come up in this conversation already. So my focus is going to be on some of the work that we do with employers. I work on the employer side of things, community side and the employer side, and my colleague Ken works on the client side and employer side. So I'll start the presentation off and just do a really high level overview of what we do at WorkBC. So we help people find all British Columbians unemployed British Columbians connect with employment. And on the employer side, we work with employers and specifically around what we're talking about today, we support them in becoming more inclusive and answering some of the questions and helping them with some of the challenges that they have around hiring people with diverse abilities. So at WorkBC, we believe in the power of work. We know that work gives hope, strengthens families, and fills hearts. Work changes lives. This is a part of WCG's manifesto, and I think it really speaks to the heart of the work that we do. We are really like everyone here, we feel really privileged to be able to support people in what we believe is really important work, connecting to meaningful employment and contributing. So we're really, like everyone here, we're passionate about what we do and, want to connect folks to employment and talk to businesses and employers about that candidate pool that they might not be familiar with. And so that's some of the work that we're definitely doing. So going back to some of the supports that we provide for employers, wage subsidy is a financial support offered to offset employer training costs. And something that's going on with wage subsidy that's really exciting. Ken and I were both in a meeting yesterday. Our ministry that our contractor has recently released some significant changes to wage subsidy. So again, at a high level, wage subsidy is now available to anybody. There used to be eligibility around that. So, but in relation to people with diverse abilities, and this is a fairly dramatic change, the period of time that the wage subsidy is now available to employers for is 78 weeks. 78 weeks, and it's broken down into 2 thirds. So for the first third of the period of time, they're covering up to 85% of the wage or the salary. So it's a pretty significant change, and I'm really excited to start to be able to market that aspect to employers to encourage them. And Ken's going to talk a little bit more about in a bit about his work with wage subsidy and employers. So that's kind of exciting news for us. Job development is another way we support employers, matching the employer needs with the right candidate. And like all of these connections with employers, it's ultimately about the relationship that the job developer or the employment counselor has with the employer. Job coaching, that's been talked about this afternoon as well. So WorkBC also provides job coaching and educates as they develop the relationship with the employer, what that looks like, and all of the aspects of how they can continue to work with the employer, support the client and the employer through job coaching. Job maintenance. So job maintenance could also potentially include disability accommodation. So with the WorkBC, we can also connect the employer to the other WorkBC program that can support them in disability accommodations. And then also follow up. So once the client is placed, it's not that the job developer leaves the client and the employer. There's constant follow-up to ensure success. And obviously, if there's any issues that arise at the beginning or at any point during the placement, the job developer is there to support the employer and the client through any issues that might come up. One of the things that WCG has been involved with for about 4 years now is we've worked with the President's Group in training employers. So I know that came up earlier as well. A gentleman was talking about the experience that I believe his daughter had with regards to the interview process. So we have been working, and pre-COVID, we were doing quarterly complimentary training sessions for businesses. And one of the things that was determined right at the beginning is where the initial buy-in to become more inclusive in hiring practices might have been coming from a senior management level, where the actual training was really needed was the supervisors and the managers on the ground that were working directly with the candidates. So that's where we really focused the training. And we had done, about 4 years worth of sessions when COVID hit. And of course, like everyone, had to shift and pivot to a virtual platform. So Trish Kelly, who is the accessibility consultant for President's Group, has been working really hard to create some online training. And that will be launched in January of this year. So, or next year, pardon me, January of 2021, and I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like. And again, you know, we'll be promoting that because the website too is another really great resource for employers around what they can do. There is an assessment that they can complete to determine where they are. Are they at the beginning? Are they in the middle? What kind of steps do they need to take to become a more diverse employer? And I know one of the things that I did experience with this group of employers that were continually showing up for the training was that we actually did start to see some shift in hiring practices, and certainly in traditional hiring practices where, you know, it might include questions like, tell me about yourself. That's not necessarily a question that's going to work for folks on the spectrum. And what we concluded, or what was concluded in that training, was for employers to ask the person, what kind of accommodations can we make so that this can be a successful interview? What can we do to support the candidate in the interview process so that it is more successful? And oftentimes a traditional and you know, some of these traditional hiring practices have been around for years. So it's time for a shift and a change there to be more inclusive across the board. So it has been satisfying to see a shift, and certainly there's a lot of work that continues to needs to be done, but we were seeing some successes and some shifts with some employers in how they were changing their hiring practices. So that's a little bit about the training part of what WorkBC is doing. And I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague Ken to talk a little bit more about his experience with employers and about how WorkBC supports clients in getting into the workforce. So over to you, Ken.
Thanks, Barb.
You bet.
And so, yes, hello, everyone. It's a wonderful day, wonderful presentations. Thank you very much. My name is Ken, and I'm the Customized Employment Coordinator for WorkBC Burnaby, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. Yeah, a lot of the things that I do, many of the employment practices, you know, that is part of customized employment at WorkBC, has been touched on by Anjela and Ross and Sarah. And so, you know, I think that it's great to hear that everyone is, you know, practicing best practices, right? Because that's what's most important. Like Sarah was saying, customized employment is one service within a host of services, you know, that serve the whole community. And, you know, what we do is we want to leverage that kind of opportunity. So, you know, that means that we talk to a lot of different kinds of employers. And so, you know, sometimes I'll bounce ideas off of other colleagues who you know, are looking for job seekers, right? And so, or candidates. And so that's been helpful. So we have a great network. And so for individuals who are looking for jobs, because I'm not sure if, you know, the audience here is, you know, if it's job seekers or employers or service providers, I want to try to provide as much information for everybody. So for job seekers, what I'd like to say in this time, you know, when you're looking for work, is to really focus on what you're passionate about and what you're good at, right? Because there is a job out there for you. There is an employer out there who will value what you do, right? And so just stick to that and just remember what you're good at, right? And there's support for what you need to work on, right? And all of us have that. I want to share a story about one individual who is not diagnosed with, you know, ASD, but he does, you know, show a lot of the characteristics, and he is an older gentleman, so it could have been a possibility that he may, you know, have some, you know, be on the spectrum somewhere, right? And I really want to share his story because it's a wonderful journey. I had a client placed in a textiles small employer, like a small company that they produce textiles. They make face masks. You know, they make all sorts of different kinds of textile-based products for different employers out there, different services. And while I was engaged in conversation with this employer, they were just mentioning, do you have anyone that would like to do some, straightforward, simple tasks? It could be something as simple as, counting the number of, straps and then bundling them up and putting them into sets of 10 or 20, right? And when I heard that, I'm like, yes, I do. Of course I do have people like that, right? Who would love that. And this gentleman that's a client of mine, he used to volunteer on the weekends, right? One in an Italian culture center, and another one in the Free Geek, is a technology kind of recycling center, and that was his weekly routine. So, there wasn't a lot of work in this textiles place, but that was enough for him, right? And so what we did is we did a job trial, and he got to cutting some things, right? And there was an interesting kind of development in this whole story, which is going to be my point. And the client, I talked a little bit about him, and she instantly kind of was, trying to communicate what to do and what she expected, and she was doing it very skillfully in a way that a person on the spectrum would really understand. It was very straightforward. It wasn't too many words, and everything was laid out. And actually, I had heard from her that she has a older brother who is actually on the spectrum. He's diagnosed with Asperger's, and she was speaking to this individual, and this individual understood everything that she was saying, and it was a very smooth transition. And it turns out that I didn't know, but this client's first name is the same as her father's as well. So that was another interesting kind of turn. But something that taught me is that every person in the community is connected to some individual with some kind of disability or challenge, whether it's like, a friend's child, or whether it's like a family member, extended family, right? And employers out there are the same, everybody, right? So the hiring manager that you speak to may have, someone who in their network, right? So there is, a real, important aspect of that to know is that for employers, right, every individual that's a job seeker who has some challenges, right, or diverse skills, this is one way to really make the community a better place for all of us, right? So that's for employers, and for job seekers to just be aware that what you present is not something different, not something particular or different, or it's, you just need to believe in yourself and to really focus on what you're good at, because like I said before, there is an employer, there is, yes, there is a job out there for you. So there's a question here. It says WorkBC. Yes. I'm representing WorkBC. I apologize. WorkBC in Burnaby, right? And so that's basically just my story to understand that we're all connected, and this is just one way to really represent and make the community a better place, right? And so everybody is connected, right? In terms of neurodiversity, in terms of diverse abilities, right? And I think that we're just doing what is I think expected of us who really want to make a difference and provide quality and good service, and it's just that message that we need to bring to employers, right? That so that's kind of my story. So thank you for listening.
Great, thanks, Ken. And I know we're at time now, but I'll just add to that. One of the messages that we're talking to employers about is having your workforce reflect the people that you're serving, right? So I think that if you're doing a good job of being inclusive, that will show up in who you're hiring, right? So thanks again, Joette and Aaron, for having us here today to meet with the other folks and have an opportunity to talk about the work that we do at WorkBC. Thanks so much.
Are there any final questions for any of the presenters?
I would like to ask Barb, is there any particular category of employer that that has been most receptive to hiring inclusively? And also, where would you most like to see breakthroughs? What area of employment would you most like to connect with employers in?
Well, I mean, that's a huge question, right? And I think that it's hard to answer that question because I think every client has their own unique and kind of individual kind of desire. So I know the work that Ken does in terms of matching that individual client with an employer is where we start from. So, you know, again, kind of going back to the President's Group, that is a really great resource. That is a pool of employers that have stepped up to say, yes, we are wanting to become more inclusive in our hiring practices. So a good place to start is to take a look at who is connected to the President's Group. We've also worked with BC Win over the years as well, and BC Win is another organization that that works with employers and does a pre-screen on the employer's behalf to connect employers to businesses that have already said, yes, this is what we want to do. We want to be more inclusive in our hiring.
Can I just quickly add to what Barb is saying? But I just want to add, if there was an industry or an area that I'd love to see development in, it would be leadership training.
Uvain, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have a number of questions. I'll try and maybe I'll eliminate some of them. The first one is regarding people who are already working through a work subsidy. I just sent this to you in the chat, actually, Barb. If you're already working through a work subsidy, and which has now been extended to 78 weeks, does that apply to someone who's already on that program?
No, my understanding is that the existing subsidies stay. This is brand new news, and I haven't drilled down to all the details in terms of the policy. That Ken and I just got this information yesterday. So,
so you're saying you don't know? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I heard yesterday, Ken, you can confirm this. Someone did ask that very question: are the existing wage subsidies, do they remain the same or do they switch over? And what I heard yesterday was they remain the same. So if someone is already in receipt of a wage subsidy, an employer, it stays the same.
Okay, next question, I'll try to be brief. One of the problems, it seems, amongst our population is not just getting a job, it's keeping a job or longevity. One of the areas I found that might be really helpful would be to have sort of a peer working with the individual on a regular basis on the job. And I wondered if there's something like that or anything else that anyone has considered in terms of longevity on the job.
I'll let Ken answer that. I know that is a component of the work that we do at WorkBC. I'm not sure of the specific details in terms of how long that goes on for. So I'm going to ask Ken to answer that question.
Well, I'm sure actually Ross and Alyssa and Anjela and all of us know that it's actually the natural supports. Natural supports basically means the manager or the supervisor on the site, right? And how much of how much information have you given to that person, right? Whether the specific supports that a person needs, a method of communication, like all of these specific details that are shared to the natural support makes the biggest difference, I think. So I think that's I apologize.
I'm just wondering how important is that in the training that you give employers, because my observation has been that having a natural, as you put it, peer support is really useful.
Right.
Sorry. It's one of, I would say, I don't know if I was to put a number on it, I would say it's about like 60–70%, the training of the natural support, right? How important that is, because it's that connection that is most important, because they're going to be seeing that client or that worker on a daily basis, or they're the ones that are responsible for the reporting. So, I always, from the beginning get-go, I just, establish a really solid connection with whoever the direct supervisor will be, because that person.
No, not even the supervisor, because now you're working through the hierarchy of command.
Yes.
I'm actually talking about a peer.
Okay.
the last question, Barb.
Yeah.
If there was one, or anybody, if you want to jump in here, if there was one thing you could change in the employment picture that you are facing in terms of helping people find work, what would it be?
Wow, well, that's a big question. You know what, my commitment is to work on it's on the end of talking to employers about the value that this candidate pool has to offer. So I just keep doing what I'm doing. The thing is we all know there is no magic wand here, and it's one employer at a time. That's the bottom line. And certainly in my experience is, unless there's a champion for the cause in that organization, right, it's going to be difficult. So like Ken said, as soon as you make a connection with an employer who has a child or a daughter or a friend or a whatever, then things shift, because there is an investment that's really personal. And I believe that that's how the shift occurs. And then one day, hopefully, that doesn't have to be a part of the equation. It will just be a given that everyone comes to the table with arms wide open. We know that that's not where we are right now. But I think, you know, in the times that we're all experiencing with the obvious backdrop right now, there's some major shifting in what people are believing is important, right? And I think that that's to our advantage. This is to our advantage too. And I don't like to just appeal to employers on definitely not this is the right thing to do. This is just what is going to add value to your business, right? It's not do the right thing. It's this is a candidate pool, and this is across the board. People from newcomers, immigrants, refugees, survivors of violence across the board, you know, but it's breaking down biases, unconscious biases that employers oftentimes aren't even aware that they have. So they're going through their process, not even realizing that there's a barrier. So I think that's really important, is the unconscious bias piece in talking to employers. And it's a hard conversation, because not often will an employer step up and say, oh yeah, well, I really have a bias here, right? It's a hard conversation, but I think it's one worth continuing to have. Yeah.
Thank you both, Ken and Barb, and thank you as well, particularly for bringing up the issue of champions. Mm-hmm. It's very important within the business structure itself, and it's certainly important to us. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in. Someone has a question in the chat. Stella is asking if any of you can elaborate on the work subsidy. What is new in 2021, and how is it different from what was before?
So I'm not going to speak specifically to that, other than to say that I will provide details and I'll pass them on to Joette. Like I said, we just got this yesterday, and I'm trying to envision the PowerPoint slide, but one of the biggest changes is the length of time and the amount in terms of folks with diverse abilities. And in addition to that, and this was like incredible, anybody that is that meets the eligibility requirements to access WorkBC services can tap into wage subsidy. So you can go into an employer and say, including, and this is new too, including if you've recently been laid off, you can, and your employer would like to rehire, but they're struggling because of the obvious, that individual can now go back with a partial wage subsidy. Again, there's maximums in weekly maximums in some of those areas, but there's big changes here in terms of the government's efforts to support business in getting back to doing business, right? So I will provide you, Joette, with the details. I've got a really generic kind of flyer, but it doesn't give all the details, but I will get back to you.
That's perfect.
Any more questions? Yeah, thanks everyone
you.
for presenting today. It's
Thanks.
really good insight, and I think it's really useful for this population.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right.